He may not say it. He may ghost you, run from the connection, or even try to forget your name. But the divine masculine knows. Not all at once, not in a perfect movie-like moment, but in waves, in silence, in dreams he doesn't talk about, in the way your energy follows him, not because you chase, but because your bond was written into his soul. And as much as he fights it, there comes a moment when he can't run from the truth anymore. She is not just another woman. She is the one, the mirror, the magnetic force that breaks every illusion of normal. And no matter how many doors he tries to walk through, her memory is the one that stays open. So how does he realize it? Not in logic, but in 6 sacred, subtle, spiritual signs that only the divine feminine can truly recognize. If you've ever felt like he knows, deep down, behind the silence, this is your confirmation. Sign number 1. He can't explain why he still feels you. He doesn't know why he still thinks about you. Not just sometimes, but in moments that make no sense. When he's busy, when he's with others, when everything on the outside looks fine. You appear, not physically, but energetically, your voice, your scent, your laughter. They come back in waves, and he tries to shake it off. He tells himself it's just a memory, just a phase, just something he'll get over. But he doesn't, because this isn't nostalgia. It's not desire. It's soul memory. You see, the divine masculine may not have language for the spiritual. He may not fully understand what the connection is, but his soul does. And your frequency, your specific light, is still imprinted in his field. It doesn't fade just because he pulls away. In fact, the more distance he creates, the louder the memory becomes. Have you ever wondered why you feel him at random moments? Why you get the sense he's thinking of you even if months have passed? It's because he is. Not always consciously, but the energy is there. He feels you in quiet places, in songs, in conversations that remind him of how you made him feel, in his body when he least expects it. There's a moment that happens, not always dramatic, not always loud, when he realizes, I'm still connected to her and I don't know why. This is not about obsession or fixation. It's about recognition. Your soul left a vibration in his life that nothing else replaces. He may try. He may date others. He may bury himself in work, distractions, patterns, but the connection lingers because you were never just a woman to him. You were a frequency shift. You were the beginning of his awakening, even if he didn't want to awaken yet. And deep down, He knows that, even if he tells himself it wasn't real, even if he claims he's moved on, there's a sacred discomfort that lives in him now. The discomfort of having touched something divine and walking away from it. The ache of knowing there was something rare and not having the words or courage to fully meet it. That ache, it's you. It's not about possession or romance. It's the echo of your presence in his nervous system, the pull of your soul in his dreams, the peace he felt in your energy and can't replicate anywhere else. This is the first sign. Before he's ready, before he understands, before he comes back or speaks up, his body remembers. It might look like confusion, like irritability, like avoidance. But underneath it all, the truth is rising. He still feels you, and not in a way he can control, because it's not coming from his mind. It's coming from his core. And the more you detach from needing that feeling to be expressed, the stronger it becomes in him. That's the paradox of divine union. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to reach. Your very existence is already communicating with him in dreams, in signs, in sudden emotions he can't explain. So if you've felt it too, those strange moments of sensing his presence without reason, you're not imagining it. You're feeling the bond that refuses to fade just because time has passed. And he feels it too, even if he never says a word, even if he tells himself he's over it. Because the truth is, he doesn't understand why he still feels you, but a part of him is slowly starting to surrender to the fact that he does. Sign number 2, your presence triggers his healing. He didn't expect it. He didn't ask for it. And if you had told him from the beginning that being near you would make his entire soul unravel, he might have walked away sooner. But he didn't, because something in your presence bypassed his defenses. Something about your light made the masks fall, even the ones he didn't know he was wearing. When the divine feminine appears in a man's life, truly energetically, soulfully, she carries a frequency that doesn't just attract, it activates. And he may have thought he was just getting to know you, but what he was really encountering was himself through you. Because your field didn't just reflect beauty, it mirrored his potential. And that is terrifying to someone who has learned to survive in limitation. This is why many masculines run, not because they don't feel the connection, but because the connection wakes up everything they've kept buried. Have you ever noticed how his energy changed after being around you? Not just in romance, but in discomfort. The way he'd open up, then suddenly close down. The way he seemed raw exposed, confused. That's not emotional instability, that's healing. Your soul did what lifetimes of pretending couldn't do. It made him feel. And healing isn't gentle at first, especially for the masculine, who has often been taught to hold it all in, to be strong, to suppress every ache and call it discipline. But your energy, it disrupted that. You didn't tell him to change. You didn't force anything. You simply existed in your truth. And your truth was loud, not in sound, but in vibration. It said, there's more. There's depth. There's love that doesn't come with conditions. There's a life beyond survival. But to receive that kind of love, he would have to shed what he built to protect himself. The ego, the stories, the walls. And that is not easy. So he pulled back. Not because you were too much, but because you were too true. You reached a part of him he wasn't ready to face. The part that still holds pain. The part that doesn't feel worthy. The part that says, if she really sees me, she'll leave. But you didn't leave. You saw through him, and that seeing, your soft, sacred recognition became a catalyst. He might not have thanked you. He might not have realized it yet. But from the moment he met you, his healing began. It may look like chaos. He might distract himself, lash out, isolate, reject. But deep beneath the surface, his system is rewiring. His heart is remembering what real safety feels like. Not because you gave it to him, but because your presence reminded him of what he's always longed for. That is the second sign. His healing begins not by his will, but by the pull of your presence. And the deeper you go into your own healing, the stronger the mirror becomes. Because he doesn't heal by you fixing him. He heals when he sees who you became in your own fire. When he feels your peace, not as performance, but as embodiment. You're not his healer, but your presence is healing, and whether he admits it or not. That truth shifted something in him that he can't reverse. The energy was felt. The wound was touched. And now the journey has begun. Sign 3. He stops comparing you to anyone else. In the beginning, he tried to explain it away, tried to tell himself you were just like the others, that you were beautiful, yes, magnetic, intriguing, but still human, still replaceable, still within the category of eventually forgettable. But something didn't match. Because no matter how many times he tried to place you in a box his mind could understand, you kept slipping through the labels. You were different. not just in how you looked or what you said, but in how you made him feel, in places he didn't even know had feelings. He may have dated others. He may have tried to move on, even while saying it was for the best. But something inside him kept resisting comparison. He would look into other eyes and still remember yours. He would share time, space, even intimacy with others, but feel the silence where your presence used to be. He tried to convince himself that it was chemistry, that it would fade, that someone else could fill the same place. But that space inside him, it wasn't shaped by desire, it was shaped by your frequency, and no one else matched it. The truth is, the divine masculine often realizes too late that you are incomparable, not because he didn't feel it earlier, but because he was still trying to make you fit into a version of love he had known before. The predictable, the performative, the controlled. But you loved without scripts. You looked at him like you remembered him. You spoke to his soul without needing to convince him of anything. And he didn't know what to do with that. So he ran, not to escape you, but to try and find normal again, to return to something that didn't require him to grow. But even in the comfort of the familiar, your presence remained, and the more he tried to compare you to others, the more he felt the gap, not because others weren't enough, but because they weren't you. He starts to notice the way others require him to explain himself, while you simply understood. He notices how laughter with others feels light, but not deep. How connection is possible, but the recognition is missing. And that's when the realization begins. It doesn't always come with lightning. Sometimes it comes in stillness. In a late night moment when her name is said, and he doesn't feel what he felt with you. In the middle of a sentence when he realizes, I'm searching for something I already had and didn't know how to hold. You see, this is the moment when comparison ends, not because he gave up trying, but because he finally accepts that there is no one else, no one who meets him at the soul, no one who both triggers and soothes, no one who sees both his wounds and his wisdom, and loves him through both. You are not a reflection of his past. You are the invitation to his becoming, and his soul knows it. So the pretending starts to feel heavy. The substitute versions of love start to fall apart, and the illusion that someone else will make this easier dissolves. Because this connection was never about ease, it was about truth. And once he recognizes that truth in you, no one else feels right. This is the third sign. He stops comparing not because he's figured you out, but because he's finally stopped trying to replace something that was never meant to be replaced. And from here on, the pull only grows. Sign number 4. He watches your growth from afar. He may not follow you online. He may not like your posts. He may have even blocked you or disappeared without a trace. But make no mistake, he sees you. He feels your rise. And the more you step into your light, the harder it is for him to pretend he's not watching. Not with his eyes, maybe, but with his soul. Because your growth is loud in the spiritual realm. Every time you choose yourself, every time you stop chasing, every time you anchor deeper into your truth, instead of waiting for him to show up, he feels it. He doesn't always understand what's happening. Sometimes it shows up as irritation, restlessness, a sense that something is changing, but he can't name it. But it's you. Your vibration is evolving, and his soul is tracking it, silently, constantly. The divine masculine is deeply attuned to the feminine, even when he doesn't acknowledge it, especially when he doesn't acknowledge it. Because acknowledging your growth means he'd have to face his own stillness, his own fear, his own delay. And yet, he watches in silence from the corners of energetic space, sometimes with awe, sometimes with guilt, sometimes with longing so intense it startles even him. Have you felt those moments? When you post something and suddenly feel his presence? When you take a leap forward in your healing and sense an invisible witness? That's not your imagination. That's his field leaning in, trying to understand how the woman he once knew has become the frequency he can't stop feeling. He doesn't reach out, not because he doesn't care, but because part of him believes he's already too far behind. He sees the way you no longer wait. He sees the joy returning to your face. He sees how you've learned to hold yourself, not from pain, but from power. And something inside him whispers, "She's moving on, but she hasn't left me." Because your growth doesn't reject him, it invites him, not with pressure, but with clarity. It tells him, "I no longer hold myself back to keep you comfortable. I'm not punishing you, I'm just rising. And if you want to meet me again, it has to be from your truth, not from your wounds." This is what shakes him, not your absence, but your evolution. He starts noticing things, little things. He remembers the way you used to talk about your dreams, and now you're living them. He remembers the way you doubted yourself, and now you stand in your voice. He remembers the way you used to orbit around his attention, and now you shine without needing to be seen. and that transformation. It's not something he can unsee. He might not respond. He might not comment. But he is watching, not to invade, not to judge, but because your growth is the map his soul is learning to follow. Because here's the truth, the divine feminine doesn't need to prove anything. Her ascension speaks louder than her words. Her healing sends ripples through timelines, and the masculine feels it all, even if he's silent, even if he's distant, even if he's pretending not to care. He does. He always did. But now something is different. Now he's starting to realize that your growth isn't a phase. It's who you've become and the version of you he once knew. She's not coming back, but the version you are now. She might just be the one his soul has always been waiting for. And for that, he watches, not with control, not with entitlement, but with reverence. Because he knows, even if he hasn't said it yet, she's becoming the woman I prayed for before I was ready to receive her. Sign number 5. His old life no longer satisfies him. At first, he thought he could return to how things were, to the people, the patterns, the routines, to the distractions that once felt enough, to the life that used to keep him safe from anything too deep, too real, too demanding of his soul. But something's shifted, and now nothing fits the same. The old pleasures don't hit the way they used to. The laughter with friends feels quieter. The victories feel hollow. The connections feel surface level. And worst of all, he knows it. He can't say it out loud yet. Maybe he still acts like everything is fine. Maybe he's still out in the world, trying to prove he's doing great without you. But his spirit is restless, because the moment he touched your frequency, even for a little while, his soul was altered. He tasted alignment, and now everything misaligned tastes bitter. He tries to forget, to fill the space with noise, to be who he used to be. But that version of him no longer feels real. And deep down, he feels the void. Not because you left a hole, but because he now sees what was missing all along. You showed him something, not just about love, but about himself. You didn't just touch his heart, you illuminated his potential. And now he can't go back to pretending that shallow love, shallow success, shallow living is enough. Because it isn't. This is the part of the journey where the masculine begins to feel uncomfortable in his own story. He looks around and wonders, why does this feel empty? Why do I feel like a stranger in my own life? Why do I keep thinking about her when I'm surrounded by everything I thought I wanted? The answer isn't punishment, it's truth. His old life was built before he awakened, before he recognized depth, before he met a mirror that reflected not only his love, but his light, and everything he wasn't allowing himself to become. You are not the cause of his dissatisfaction. You are the key that revealed the cage. And now he's faced with a choice: to keep pretending and shrinking into comfort, or to step into the unknown where his soul is calling him. He might not choose yet. He might try to repair the mask. He might hold on to what's familiar for a while longer. But the fulfillment is gone. And this is the fifth sign. Not always seen, not always expressed, but deeply felt. His reality begins to feel off. The colors dull, the passion fades, the illusion cracks. Because nothing that was built before the divine feminine entered his life can survive her truth. She didn't come to destroy. She came to awaken. And now every false alignment trembles in her absence. He sees how others don't challenge him like you did, with love, not control. He sees how comfort has become confinement. He sees how the easy path feels lifeless. And though he may not act on it yet, his soul knows this is not enough anymore. Not just in romance, in purpose, in expression, in integrity, in how he moves through the world. He starts craving truth, craving depth, craving freedom that isn't bought, but earned by surrender. And he starts remembering the life he thought he wanted was a version built on forgetting. The life he's truly here to live begins with remembrance. Remembrance of who he is. Remembrance of what love can be. Remembrance of the connection that first sparked that awakening. And that connection is you. Sign number 6. He finally surrenders to the bond. He resisted it for days, for months, maybe even years. He fought the pull, ran from the truth, told himself it was just a phase, a beautiful distraction, a powerful connection, but still something he could control. But there comes a moment when the divine masculine can't run anymore. Not because the bond gets louder, but because his resistance gets tired. The weight of pretending, of suppressing, of wearing the mask becomes unbearable. And he realizes this isn't just about her. This is about me. Because the bond you share doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It doesn't chase. It waits. Not in desperation, but in divine clarity. It waits in the vibration of truth that never wavers, even when silence fills the space. And that vibration has been speaking to him all along, not with words, but with memories, with dreams, with a feeling he can't replace or explain, only remember. When he finally surrenders to the bond, it's not a dramatic scene, it's a return, a homecoming to his own soul, to the part of him that knew you before this lifetime, to the version of himself that is not afraid to love deeply, to show up fully, to grow into the man this connection always called him to be. And that surrender isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing he's ever done, because it requires letting go of everything that once kept him safe, his pride, his logic, his illusions of control. It requires him to see you not as a fantasy, but as a mirror, a sacred companion, the only one who ever truly saw him. Not for what he did, not for what he gave, but for who he is at the core. When the masculine surrenders, he doesn't come back begging. He comes back aware of how much he denied, of how much you held, of how much this bond was working in silence, even when you thought it was over. He sees you differently now, not because you changed, but because he finally opened his eyes. And in that moment, he may not have all the answers. He may not have the perfect plan or the right words, but he has presence, he has humility, he has reverence for the journey he once resisted. This is the sixth and final sign. He stops avoiding, stops deflecting, stops pretending the connection didn't touch him, and instead, he surrenders to the pull, to the love, to the divine timing that kept circling back to you again and again. You don't have to do anything to make this happen. You don't have to force it, call it in, or try to predict the moment. Your only job was to become the version of yourself that doesn't need the surrender, but welcomes it when it arrives. Because the feminine's wholeness is the doorway to his awakening, and when he feels that your love is no longer coming from a wound, he knows he's safe to meet you there, not as a savior, not as a missing piece, but as the man who finally sees you, because he finally sees himself. That's how the divine masculine knows you're the one, not in theory, but in the surrender, the stillness, the sacred yes that lives in his soul, and now is ready to rise.